Thanks for joining me for episode 6 of Inside the Majors. I'm your regular host, Garren. Today we're going to have a chat with Bryan Scrivener, who notched up his 50th round with the Majors series at the Speedway 500. We're also going to have a chat with the co-owners of Sudspeed, the Australia and New Zealand-based sim racing glove manufacturers, although they do some other products as well. So that'll be coming up after the interview with Bryan. We are also this week back with the World 100 after the summer break, so good luck to everyone competing in that. Being the dirt oval round, it's a bit specialised, it's a bit unique. There's probably going to be couple of ringers that show up that certainly show me a thing or two that I wouldn't be able to replicate. But anyway, hope everybody has a great week, or has had a great week of practice for that, and has a great weekend. So straight after this, we'll get into the chat with Bryan. This week's interview is with Bryan Scrivener, who at the last round notched up his 50th round with the Majors series. As it happens, there was also two other members of Bryan's team that also notched up 50 rounds at the last round, Stuart Elder and Sam Harper. Now, we had hoped to get all three of them together for a chat around their experiences over the years of racing in the Majors. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen with life for all of us to be in the same place at the same time. However, I did manage to sit down with Bryan this week to have a chat about his experiences and what he thought. I started by asking Bryan if he actually even realised that he'd now done 50 rounds in the Major series since starting in 2020.
No idea. I might have looked at the end of the year.
So what's the highlight of this season 2024 been for you so far?
Man, if one happens, I will let you know. It has been a heck of a year for me. It just seems like I'm getting caught up in wrecks in almost every race. Like, I really don't think I've finished a round on the lead lap yet. So I think I got to say the highlight so far has been the break since Indy, which I spent a lot of playing farming simulator and just tended my crops, man.
You've been racing with Majors since 2020. There must have been some better highlights during that time over the years, I would have thought.
Yeah, overall it's good. And even the problems I've had this year, it's not Majors. It was all of sim racing. Like, I didn't touch the rig for 6 weeks. And that was, 2 leagues plus Indy officials, just all of it was going horrible. But, I think looking back over 50 rounds, it's hard to separate all of that from COVID, because I started right at the beginning of 2020 and I'd only been sim racing for maybe 6 months. And I got a message from Mike and the old forums, when the forums for iRacing were still used for messaging, like they don't seem to be anymore. And it sounded kind of like what I was looking for, which was, I didn't want to be stuck in one discipline. I kind of like all of it, and I wanted to learn all of it. And it sounded like a league where I could do that. It's hard to say 50 rounds later how much I've learned, but I'm working on it.
Do you consider yourself more of an oval guy or a road guy? What's your go-to style of racing in iRacing?
If I'm just going to hop in the car and join a race, it's going to be an oval race. That's road racing for me. I feel like I have to spend at least a week, if not 2, just learning a track and being competent enough to not wreck anybody off of it. So the oval rounds are where I hope for points, and the road rounds, I just try to survive.
Did you race in the Majors 24 this year?
I didn't this year. I ran last year with Forge, and I ran in 22, I think. High Class did a team, which was a team that I owned for a couple of years before I dropped and moved over. And, the 24 is not my favorite kind of racing, the team endurance, because I just feel like I'm always the one most likely to wreck the car. And a lot of that's just a confidence deal, but I don't like the potential to ruin something that so many people have worked so hard on.
You said you did last year with the Forge team. That's obviously now morphed into being Fusion. How did you begin racing with that team?
When I first started in Majors in 20, it might have not been until 21. Mark Stevenson, and this would have been, I think, his Sportsman Championship year, pushed me to a Daytona 500 win in the officials. And we got to talking afterward. And he was looking for somebody to fill a seat at that time, but I had one lucky oval race and really no road skills, and they were shooting for a championship. So it didn't really work out then, but I kind of kept him in the back of my mind. And a couple of years later, after 2 years of trying to get high class off the ground and just not being able to find drivers who were willing to stick with it. I reached out to him again at the start of 23 and said, "Hey, I'm full in high class, looking to jump. Do you have a seat for me?" And he brought me over into the Discord, which at that time was the Forge and NRG shared Discord. And the rest is history.
You've been a captive ever since. Outside of sim racing, what forms of motor race or motorsport do you enjoy watching or attending?
There's not a lot where I am that's easy to get to, but we do have Kansas Speedway. I've caught one NASCAR race out there, and it's a cool track. If you're going to go see a NASCAR race, that's the place to do it. I'd, for going to see live racing, I'd rather go to see club racing, honestly, just because that's kind of what I'm trying to get into and trying to do. We also have I-70 Speedway, which when I was a kid, we used to go to. It's a very small asphalt oval. It shut down long, long time ago and has recently reopened as a dirt track. And they just this year opened a world-class drag strip out there. So NHRA is coming. They got a lot of nice new facilities out there. It's a big property. I'm hoping they'll add a road course somewhere. If you're anywhere near the middle of Missouri, it's a cool place to go.
As you said, you're looking at getting into club racing. Have you competed in any real racing before?
I am 6 weeks away from our first 24 Hours of Lemons race. I've gone basically in 4 years from racing in EA Sports NASCAR 2015 with a flight joystick to having a track car in my garage.
Yeah, so tell us about what car have you got and where's it come from? What sort of condition is it in?
It is a 1968 Mercedes 250. Condition is extremely rough, or it was when we snagged it for $500. We have done a ton to it, obviously. And if you know anything about 24 Hours of Lemons, what you probably know is there's a $500 limit. That's all kind of nonsense. It doesn't count anything you do for safety or any OEM equivalent repair work. So it's certainly expensive to get into. And we had to replace just about every suspension component on the car. The engine seems sound. The clutch and transmission, who knows? We'll know sometime next week if this thing will drive around the block or not. It made 128 horsepower on its best day 50 years ago. It weighs close to 3,000 pounds. So imagine if you had a Formula V engine in a street stock, that's pretty much what we got.
$500 limit capped at about 10,000 once you finish
Yeah.
getting it ready.
I'd say we've got 8 easily in it.
Yeah, great. Well, I think you need to share some of the stories with the rest of the Majors crew on the Discord once you get there and actually get into the racing and stuff. That'd be really, really cool to follow.
Yeah, we're trying to film as much of it as we can. We're not YouTubers or content creators, but we're trying to at least capture what we can and make something out of it.
As someone that's been with the Major series for quite a few years now, what's been the best thing about it for you across the 5 years you've been doing it?
What I really like about majors is honestly the effort that Mike puts in running it. There's so many leagues out there, and I've tried a bunch of them, and nobody puts the effort in to run an organization the way Mike does. They're always trying to drive in it, and then a lot of them, they'll make questionable rules that seem to help their own teams, or stuff never gets updated, or rules don't make any sense. There seems to be a real effort to make this the best league out there.
Interesting you say that because Mike himself has actually notched up 50 rounds in the Major series as well. Although I don't think he's actually run a race since Daytona 22.
It'll be a good one to rest on. He won the race, as I recall.
He did. He did. And I think that was to date his one and only Majors win.
Yeah, I might retire if I get one too. I've managed one top 5 in 50 starts.
So for those that don't know, I am actually on the same team as Bryan. So I have a little bit of inside knowledge here. Whilst, yes, the wins and top 5 statistics aren't in double digits or anything, you do put a lot of effort and a lot of time into some of the other aspects of the racing, both a lot of setup work, a lot of livery stuff. Do you enjoy that side of things as much as the racing? Or tell us a bit about how you sort of took on those roles within the team that you're in.
I just kind of got used to doing with high class because no one else there could. And I do kind of like doing them. Not as much as I did then because I used to do them on a local install of Photoshop, which isn't a thing anymore. Creative Cloud, don't get me started on that mess. But to do that, I'm now like VPNing into a lab at the university where I work, and it's a huge hassle. The setups are another thing altogether. I hate setups. I put a lot of effort early on into trying to learn them because, like a lot of rookies, I thought that was going to be the key to success. And so all of that effort was wasted. But I did learn some things, and I can usually make a car a little bit better. And my problem with those is I like doing them a little too much. It's how I practice. I feel like I'm working on a setup, but by the end of that, I've done 500 laps. And I don't know at the end if the car feels better because I practiced or because I improved it. So it's a paradox, I guess, on the setups.
This week is a return to racing in the majors after the summer break. We're at Eldora on the dirt. How do you find racing on the dirt?
I dislike this particular combo, I think. This car is just hard on a dry track, and it's going to be a struggle. I'm relying on a good qualifying time, which is the only part of this I seem to have figured out this week. And I'm hoping that keeps me close enough to the front of the heat at the start that I can just skate my way into the main. I do like dirt racing in general, though. I like the winged sprints more than I like these cars.
Do you plan on doing all of the races until the end of the season? You said you had a little bit of a gap this year, self-imposed or sanity break from sim racing. You said you could be doing the rest of the majors rounds till the end of the year?
That's a good question. I actually need to look at the schedule because the Lemons race may interfere with one of them. No, I'll make it. The Formula Ford Festival is the week after, so I should make all the rest of the ones, but I won't be in Ironman because I did miss an earlier round.
Well, good luck for the rest of the season with the rounds that you do manage to make, and especially good luck with the Lemons racing. Hopefully we can hear and see a little bit about how you get on with that.
Yeah, there'll be at least one YouTube come out of it.
Yeah, that'd be great, especially for some of us that always dream of doing something for real, but have either never had the skill, talent, money, or inclination otherwise, or supportive partner. Yeah, we'd love to see how it goes for somebody, one of our own. So keep us updated with how that goes. And thanks for having a chat with us on Inside the Majors.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Bryan for sitting down and having that chat with me. As I mentioned beforehand, his teammates Sam Harper and Stu Elder also notched up 50 rounds. So I thought I would just mention Sam actually currently sits number 4 on the all-time wins list for the major series with 13 wins, and has also been a member of the competition committee for a number of years. So well done, Sam, and thanks for your contribution to the series. And also Stu Elder, who's been with us since 2020 as well. Stu's a consistent performer in the Legends division and has been for several years in the majors. So well done, Stu. Currently leading the Legends division in the sports division of Pacific region. So keep that up, Stu. Sorry we couldn't all be in one place at the one time, but congratulations, guys, on reaching a milestone. There's a number of drivers that are also very close to reaching 50 rounds. So maybe we'll have a chat with some others as they reach some milestones this year. And also we'll definitely be having a chat with some of the guys that notch up 100 races towards the end of this season.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Joining me now, I have Richard Mayer and Chris Ruddle, the co-owners, co-creators, co-conspirators, that might not be the right term, of sim racing glove company Sudspeed, which is celebrating its 1-year anniversary of operation this month. Welcome to Inside the Majors, guys.
Thank you.
Regular listeners will remember, or indeed anyone who'd like to go back and listen to episode 3, I think it was, that I was sent a pair of Sudspeed gloves to trial, and I did a piece on the podcast about my first impressions and comparisons to the sorts of gloves that I've used up until that point. Not anymore. I now am a regular Sudspeed glove user. as was pretty obvious by that piece as well. I really like them. They've definitely usurped anything that I've owned prior to getting them. But that's the product itself. Richard, I might start with you in asking, what was the inspiration or the light bulb moment, if you like, that led to heading down this path of creating a sim racing specialist glove and the Sudspeed company and brand?
Look, it's an interesting one. It's a bit of a niche market. Obviously, gloves designed for the simulator. A lot of guys use karting gloves, or even some guys we've talked to have used FIA spec car gloves. With the good quality wheels that people buy and build now, and the replicas that you get with Alcantara and leather, and a lot of it's all molded grips now. I mean, people are using gloves not only to protect the wheels, but to protect their hands. And the biggest issue we have in Australia, and Garren, you can relate to this, perhaps not some of our Euro and American counterparts, but here down under, it all costs so much to get from overseas. So this, the business side of my brain sort of thought, oh, there's a bit of an opportunity to produce something that might be priced well and is quick and affordable down here. And then obviously Chris and I have been friends for years. He's got a graphic sort of background, and I thought, well, there's an opportunity for us to do something together. We both obviously have a shared love for motorsport and the history and stories behind motorsport too, which sort of inspire some of our glove designs. But it was really a bit of a mixed kind of bag, I suppose, of things that came together. One day I thought, hang on, maybe we could do this. And then we obviously sourced a supplier and we came up with a few designs and talked about a few things. And 12 months later, here we are talking to you.
Chris, the challenges that come with starting any new business are many and varied. What do you think some of the bigger challenges were from taking it from idea or the seed of an idea to, here this, a company that's now a year on and only growing from where it began?
I guess the main thing is probably being recognised, or people actually knowing that you exist, so to speak. By the time we formed the business and we were getting the samples made and making a few decisions about that sort of stuff, doing the creative with our own branding and bits and pieces, that was quite seamless, just sort of going back and forward. But yeah, then once we sort of launched, and initially we had a bit of success with, we were racing for a team at one stage, the pair of us, so they sort of come on board and supported us a little bit, and then just sort of started to grow bit by bit. Black Friday last year was quite successful for us, and after that we brought on our second and third designs. Things have started snowballing from there quite a lot compared to the first 6 months. You also learn a lot of things along the way, like in advertising and where to spend money and what worked and what didn't work and that sort of stuff. So a lot of it's been trial and error. A lot of it's just you learn as you go, and what comes about comes about.
So you said the Black Friday sales was, I guess that would have been 23, was a big turning point. Was there a particular push or something that you did different there that led to that?
I mean, really just they were slightly discounted, and obviously by that stage we had a wee bit of money where we could afford a bit more advertising. We were doing a few events as well, so the brand was getting seen on iRacing and on platforms. We also run a sports car series we did 2 seasons of that, and that was also quite a good catalyst to build a bit of a following on Discord with our own channel, and that was televised. So that also helped sort of spread the name a little bit. So all just sort of bits and pieces coming together sort of just helped the momentum.
I'm sure that there was a lot of times up until, whether it's that point or soon after, where was there points where you just went, oh, geez, we've really got ourselves in over our heads here? How many sleepless nights or arguments with partners were there, or things that along the way that really made you think, oh, not sure I should have gone down this path?
Look, fortunately, I don't think we've ever thought that. We did make a point when we first sort of started, making sure that we tried to bite off enough that we could chew, or certainly not more than we could chew. I mean, they say that you should try and bite off a little bit more than you can chew, and then chew like hell. And it was a bit of a mixed bag for us. I mean, we ordered a reasonable quantity of the initial run. We learned a lot straight away. We changed the logo a little bit and the design, and the actual product itself is great. That hasn't really changed at all. A few small tweaks, but the biggest thing for us was having enough variety, I think. We were very fortunate that the first run sold quite well, but we limited ourselves in that respect. We probably could have done a few different designs when we started, but we didn't. And we're here now, and we've got plenty more designs in the works. So there's a lot of variety now for our customers. I have ridiculous attention to detail to the point that it is detrimental sometimes. I ask Chris to change the smallest little thing in designs, and then he gets frustrated about that and says it'll be fine. And then, funnily enough, it's totally fine. And I sit back and go, well, I shouldn't have worried about that in the first place. So I'm probably more of a warrior, whereas I think Chris is quite practical in his approach to things. And obviously he's very experienced in the design world and just knows what's going to work. And I'm going, oh, maybe we move this about 0.5 millimeter that way. And he's sort of just like, shut up, bro, let's just go with it. And it's fine in the end. So that's probably the biggest thing. But we do have very complementary skill sets. I'm definitely more of a business orientated person. I run a business separately in real life, IRL, as they say, compared to in the sim. I'm a businessman on that side of things. And then Chris has certainly got the marketing design kind of side in his sort of real world space. So those sort of skill sets come together. We both obviously love motorsport. We love sim racing as a hobby, and we're total motorsport tragics, staying up until 3, 4 o'clock on Monday mornings watching Formula One and all those sorts of things.
We don't have a choice over here. So
No.
when you all
Yeah,
think
that's
the
right.
world- when you all think that the world is ending because you've got to get up at 5 a.m. to watch the Brazilian Grand Prix or whatever it is, we do that every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're very fortunate in that respect. And I mean, obviously, as the business grows, we're going to run into more and more curveballs, I suppose, but we're pretty good mates too. So, I mean, we're kind of practical with that sort of thing. So we've been very fortunate. It's a passion project for us, but it is growing quickly. And we're super grateful for everyone that's bought gloves and is enjoying it, you know, being part of the community and everything. And we're just excited to see what comes next.
Well, passion project or otherwise, you're now a year in. As you mentioned earlier, the new designs are coming. I've seen the new designs. They look great. You know, things are happening. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what is the next phase for Sud Speed? What have you got that you're excited to tell people about for both the anniversary celebration and beyond that?
Well, I suppose we do have a few new designs. So for anyone who's not part of our Discord, join our Discord. You can grab a link to that from the website from sudspeed.com. Join the Discord, and there's not a lot going on there at the moment because we primarily ran that for our league, but there's a bit of chat, and obviously we share a few designs and just a bit of general sim racing and motorsport chat, which is pretty fun. But we've got 3 new designs. We've got a few other new designs, obviously, behind the scenes as well, and we're just sort of trying to stagger our releases as we go. But there's a lot of people that are interested in some of the new designs that we've got coming and sort of making some suggestions, so we're sort of listening to all that. Really, for us, I think sim racing is one of those things where people get to express themselves and they get to drive a virtual version of the car that they love, and they get to have a replica wheel of the car that they love. Our designs tend to be motorsport themed, I guess, and Chris can talk to this a little bit, but certainly drawing from or inspired by some real world motorsport themes and motorsport liveries. That's kind of the direction that we are going to be going. It's an opportunity for people to express themselves, and obviously the product is very high quality. We're somewhat biased, you know, I love it, but try it yourself to see if you agree. But it's definitely designed for sim racing, but the liveries are where we get to have fun, or the designs are where we get to have a bit of fun. Chris has always got new stuff going behind the scenes, and it's always fun to see what he's come up with.
Probably about 40 that have never seen the light of day. That's it.
Yeah.
Every day you just get a new idea. We both quite like the retro motorsport inspired sort of stuff compared to the liveries you sort of see nowadays on race cars. So yeah, a lot of that stuff sort of arcing back to Can-Am and F1 in the 70s and all that sort of stuff. As we move forward, I think a lot of that stuff will sort of come to the fore a bit more, as well as having what looks like a more sort of motorsport glove that you would see on an actual telecast and those sort of bits and pieces. And then we added obviously the socks have been quite popular. They seem to be quite polarizing in the sim world, but we've definitely sold a few pairs. So they've been good as well.
It was a bit of a test.
So-
But if you've never tried grippy socks, you'll either love them or you'll hate them.
Well, as somebody who has tried the Sud Speed sim racing socks, what I can tell you is there is no slipping whatsoever. So if you're somebody that really wants a proper grip on the pedals, those things are for you. If
That's
you're
an
somebody that
interesting
likes a bit of sliding on the pedals with your foot, they're not going to give it to you.
We have a friend, shout out to Simon Mazzomo, doing a bit of a half and half as well. So he'll have one grippy sock and one slidey sock, but he does the thing where he sort of wears them inside out, or wears a second pair rather. I don't know. It's quite complicated. But he's a good driver. He's quite quick, especially in the Porsche Cup car and a few of those sorts of things. So whatever he's doing, it works. But shout out to Mez and his weird sock decisions. But the biggest thing with the socks, I think, for us, I would always race in socks. Anyone who races in bare feet, I don't know how you do it. A lot of people like to wear boots even, but I feel like that's almost a bit too much. So the socks for us was a bit of a middle ground, you know, with a bit of grip. If you've got some nice, good quality sort of aluminium pedal faces, slippy pedal faces that a lot of these new pedals have, they can get quite slippery, so you do need a little bit of grip. But it's polarizing, and we kind of did it as not a joke, but a bit of a trial in the market to try and do a few socks, and so far so good. So we might end up doing some different sort of sock designs as well. But you're not really looking at your feet, I suppose, are you?
Well, I can actually give you a bit of consumer feedback on the fly, if you like. I had actually tried, for anyone that's got small children, you'll understand what I'm talking about here. Socks that you get from the jumpy trampoline places that you take your little kids to. So I had actually tried those because those are socks that have some grippy pads on the bottom of them. But what I'd found is, yes, they provided some grip, but it wasn't reliable. The socks that come from Sudspeed, it's 100% reliable. There is no slip whatsoever. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. I like a little bit of slip on my accelerator foot because that's just how my ankle has learnt how to use the throttle pedal. However, on the brake, I'm more than happy to have no slip whatsoever. So, it's a product that's specific for sim racing, right? So it's definitely better than something that you've tried to, or that I had tried to appropriate from somewhere else in the world. And I said the same thing when I did the glove review. I had been using motocross gloves or mountain biking gloves in the past. I'd tried both of those and they had done a good job. As soon as I put on the Sudspeed gloves, suddenly I've got a product that's actually designed for what I'm using it for. And suddenly all of the things that I didn't know that I was missing, I couldn't live without. So, when you come up with a specific product for a specific use, which is going to do the job better, right?
No, look, that's an interesting point you make, actually. That was one of the things that we did talk a lot about coming back to the gloves. Designing the prototype was about actually having features that were relevant for sim races. So, these are really lightweight, and that's one of the first things a lot of people comment on. I'm sure you probably noticed that, Garren, when you tried your pair. Really lightweight, really cool temperature-wise, because it gets quite warm, especially here in Australia in summer. So that was one of the big things. And then also the touch pads for a lot of touchscreen dashboards or wheels, or if you use your phone or whatever. Just the little things that make these specific to sim racing. And then that was where the sock idea sort of came from as well, with a nice thick sole. So you can press on quite a hard load cell, but then also with a bit of grip too. So we're sim racing enthusiasts, motorsport tragics, whatever you want to call us. So we kind of notice this stuff when you sit down and you go, oh, my socks are a bit slippy. Well, why don't we find a pair that have some grip? It seems like a simple solution, but it does make a difference.
And we'll talk about sim racing generally, and particularly the growth of sim racing through COVID and where it's headed to now in a second. But as I said in the review that I did on the previous podcast, the exchange rate for anyone that's listening that's not in Australia and New Zealand to the Australian dollar is very favourable.
Yeah, value for money was something that I think was really important for us as well. I think you're paying, in some cases, around about 100 US for a lot of these gloves, especially for us having them shipped from North America or from Europe. So we think ours are pretty good value, I think, for what you get. Certainly on the Australian market, we kind of did a little bit of market research and have priced them quite well. So for those of you who are dealing with our US dollar or euro or the pound, then Sudspeeds are pretty affordable. So we've also got a flat rate international shipping of $10 Australian for one or two pairs. And then it goes up a little bit if you order a larger package that obviously weighs a bit more. But that was one thing we thought was quite important, is to have competitive pricing and competitive international shipping as well. So if you're in the States or Europe or the UK, you can get them shipped for $10 Australian.
So we might move a little bit away from Sudspeed itself because, as you said, you're both motorsport tragics, as I am, as are probably, everyone that's listening to this podcast, right? We don't get involved in sim racing because we have no interest in real racing, right? That's what leads us here in the first place. So sim racing obviously had a massive explosion during COVID when we were all stuck inside. Everyone was looking for something to do or had a lot more time on their hands. A lot of people expected that to sort of dissipate once we all got back to, and I'm doing air quotes, which I do on the podcast every week, and it just makes no sense. No one can see me. But I mean, you look at any of the iRacing special events, they're only getting bigger still. The iRacing platform is still getting expansion in its subscriber base. It was an interesting time for Sudspeed to start with a product for sim racing when a lot of people thought that it was going to tail off. But from your perspective, both from the business side and also just your involvement as part of the sim racing community, it's definitely still growing, right? That's definitely how you're seeing it.
So when we were locked up, we were doing the same thing everyone else was, and building rigs and playing around with bits and pieces. I think it's a bit like golf. It's one of the only things you could still go outside to do during COVID, and it hasn't petered off. I know in Sydney there's a lot of golf courses that are now completely full. We run in a couple of leagues and sponsor a couple of leagues as well, and they have 60 cars on a grid that a full series was completely booked out in 3 days after going live. So there's definitely still a demand for it, which is awesome. But yeah, it just seems to be getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I think the increase, I suppose, or introduction of a lot of value for money brands, and I blame Sim Magic, who started it by doing good quality direct drive that was much, much cheaper than what you could get from, for example, Simucube. And then Moser now sort of showed up as well. People are getting good quality gear for a lot cheaper. Even Fanatec used to be more expensive, and then they did the CSL DD. You know, all of these companies are now producing better quality gear every year for more competitive prices every year. You can get, 8 or 12 Newton meters plus a good rim for almost under $1,000 in Australia now, which is
Yep.
not much at all. And combined with the fact that PC parts are starting to become a bit more affordable now, you don't even need to run triples. Obviously, a lot of people are running single screens, or even virtual reality is starting to become more affordable. I found it's interesting. I found that we've got just two distinct markets, or two distinct areas in sim racing. You've got gamers who have kind of branched across to start doing a bit of sim racing. Chris and I are not that, though. We're the motorsport tragics that have figured out computers because we can't afford a real race car. That's kind of the direction we come from. So sim racing, I think it's never been stronger in terms of what you can get in terms of gear. I mean, iRacing's got so much great content now, and then this LMU Le Mans Ultimate has just been released. Rennsport is in development. AMS2's got great content. There's so much choice now. The new Gran Turismo is super popular on the PlayStation as well. You could do anything you want, basically, when it comes to virtual motorsport. It's a great
It's also,
environment at the moment.
it's also something you see, like during COVID when a lot of those E-series were publicized and all that sort of stuff. You could see, I could do that. Whereas previously you didn't have that. It's probably one of the only things that you can have a direct correlation with being in splits with real life race drivers. Like what other sport could you do that in?
Yep.
You definitely wouldn't want to be doing that in rugby or something like that, would you?
It's very interesting. You can't have a game of tennis against Novak Djokovic, or you can't go out and play a round of golf, with Tiger Woods, but you can share the virtual track with Max Verstappen. Yeah, and that's about the only real world sport that you can engage with the supporters and the fans in this fashion. It's a very unique space, and it's probably one of the most accurate simulations of a real world activity as well. You can play FIFA on the PlayStation. It's nothing like playing in a real game of football, and you can play virtual computer games of almost everything, but sim racing is about the only thing, short of flight simulation, but it's not a sport as such. It's more of a pastime or a hobby. But sim racing is about the only competitive activity you can interact with that's somewhat realistic.
Yeah, it's still a wheel in your hands, there's pedals at your feet, and you're looking at a computer screen rather than out a windscreen. But it gives us all of this great opportunity to make us feel like we're actually taking part in the sport. But outside of the sim racing world, I'm interested here, what are the sorts of things that you guys choose to follow other than just everything, which is, probably the real answer. But what are the things that really float your boat as far as the real world motorsport goes, both here locally in Australia, New Zealand, and also around the world?
We're both tragics for Porsche Cup. I don't know why. I mean, we're both Porsche fans, but we were actually at Sydney Motorsport Park for the latest round of the V8 supercars, and I swear we probably enjoyed the Porsche race more than we enjoyed the supercar race. We've been to the 12-hour, went to the Formula One a couple of years back. I swear we'd probably go watch somebody, race lawnmowers if it was on somewhere near home. We'd probably be there.
Yeah, I think one of our, there's always a late night text message going around going, oh, did you see the some sort of Asian GT challenge is on, or something in Europe or whatever on YouTube? You can just jump on and you press live. And because of the amount of motorsport content we watch on YouTube, if we press live on YouTube, it always brings up some obscure overseas series. And it's always really interesting to watch because it's stuff that we don't get. Here in Australia, obviously everyone's mad for supercars, and it's going through a bit of an interesting phase at the moment with Gen 3 and all of that sort of stuff. Still great racing, but, they're having their own challenges. We do love the Porsche Cup, but we don't really get as much GT racing, which is something that we both love, certainly as the guys in North America and Europe do. We don't really get prototypes here either at all. GTP racing and obviously the GT Le Mans stuff that they run in Europe, and those endurance series are fantastic as well. We love endurance racing. That's one thing that Australia, we've got the Bathurst 12-hour, but a multi-class enduro down here. I mean, Phillip Island would be an awesome track for it. Sydney
Or the
Motorsport
Bend.
Park would be all right too, but
Bend.
probably a bit tight. But the Bend, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got great circuits here. So I think it's only a matter of time before we start to see a bit more diverse motorsport in Australia. Supercars are not the same as what they used to be. You know, the Ford versus Holden rivalry is sort of, it's changing. I mean, it's still sort of there with Ford and General Motors, Chevrolet, but it's not the same. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years. I've just got my fingers crossed for a big multi-class enduro. How good would that be? It would just be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's the sort of thing that the motorsport community in Australia would support. You would get a lot more people at an event held at the Bend or Phillip Island or Eastern Creek, whether it was an Asian Le Mans series or a World Endurance Championship series around. You would get multiples and multiples more people than you get at, for instance, round in Bahrain or Saudi Arabia or Qatar. But obviously, we don't have somebody with cubic tons of cash to throw at them to say, hey, bring your series here because here's a whole chunk of money. Obviously, being a smaller market in terms of people as well, you know, the manufacturers aren't really that incentivized to come out here either, which is a real shame because from a fan perspective and a circuit perspective, we've got everything that they would want. It's just the dollars that talk.
Yeah, and there's things that people will travel for. Bathurst 12-hour is a really good example. Build it and they will come, as they say. And Bathurst 12-hour was nothing, and then eventually sort of midway through the 2010s, I think it was about 2014 or 2015, there was probably 8 or 10 different manufacturers, you know, Nissan one and then Aston Martin and Bentley and all the different brands were there. GT racing going really strong and then COVID put a dampener on it, but it's starting to become really, really popular again. It's really exciting to see what could happen because we've got some great circuits here and people are starting to know about us again.
So, you know, so the talent's here and we know the infrastructure's here. It's just we're perceived as being so far away that I think it scares a lot of series off. But really, it's not that much of a logistical exercise to come down here, especially once when you get here. Oh, a random question, complete tangent out of left field that I wanted to ask both of you guys. The Olympics is on right now. Should motorsport be part of the Olympics? It gets brought up regularly. No. Okay. Well, there you go.
We've never talked about it.
The only way it should be is if it was karting.
That's an interesting thought. I don't think it should be, to be honest. The Olympic Games, in my opinion, I don't think golf should be in the Olympics. I don't think BMX should be in the Olympics. I think the Olympics has got a very strong tradition in it. There's World Cups for all these other things. I don't really personally think that those things should be in the Olympics.
Is there a World Cup for skateboarding?
X Games or whatever, you know, like they've got their own championships. Swimming have world championships or diving or athletics or whatever, you know. But even things like some of the team games like basketball and football, I'm not convinced they should be Olympic sports. I just think the Olympics it's got so much tradition and I think it should stay that way. But that's me.
It's been noted. Richard would like the nude wrestling back like the ancient games. Okay. I
thought we weren't going to talk about that on the podcast.
Oh, sorry. The reason that I threw that out there is because, and I didn't even realize this, it was my son that told me about this, that the IOC is talking about sanctioning an esports Olympics. So I'm assuming that that's based on the gaming side of things. So, you know, first person shooter games and that stuff. But I would assume if they were going to go down this path, that sim racing would actually be included with it. Why wouldn't it be?
Mm.
How would we feel about having something like that, where this pastime that we all enjoy, this competition that we all share, you know, online, if it got pushed up to Olympic level, sim racing, what would we think about that? What would that do to this little community or niche market of the sim racing world that we've got? What would that do if suddenly it got pushed to being an Olympic level sport?
Hopefully it would sell a lot more gloves.
Hopefully. That's an interesting thought, isn't it? I think there's a lot that can still go wrong. I don't know. I still think that this is probably in its infancy. There could be a lot of problems ensuring fair competition.
Yeah, you can understand why they're doing it though, because the Olympics is trying to stay current with everybody. Hence
Exactly
why
right.
skateboarding and BMX and all those sort of events have come in.
You say that, but breakdancing was a step too far.
That's right.
Is that an Olympic sport?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh,
You're going to
that's
get it
bad.
started now, dude.
That's bad business. Break dancing, not for me. I'm
I'm
glad
sorry,
I'm
did
not
we-
on the IOC.
I don't know about going down the esports route. I think there's probably enough, you know, whatever world champion esports thing you have is probably enough. I don't think it probably needs to be included in the Olympics.
Look, I threw the question out there. I should answer. Should at least have the balls to answer it myself. I don't think that there should be IOC sanctioned sim sports or esports. Yeah, there's other ways of doing that. It doesn't have to be done that way. But yeah, I'm sure that everybody under 35 is no longer listening to this podcast. So sorry to see you go. But yeah, I told you that we'd end up on some tangents as part of this discussion, and talking about BMX biking at the Olympics was not on my list. But yeah, hey, that's where we ended up. But look, just a final thing that I thought I should bring it back to Sudspeed itself. You've been involved in a number of series before. You've run some stuff yourself. You've got your own Sudspeed Discord for people that are interested. What would you like people to do in terms of staying engaged with your brand and seeing things that are coming in the future?
Probably just jump on the website, follow us on socials if you're not planning on buying gloves now. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming in the next little while, new designs that'll appeal to a wide range of different motorsport enthusiasts. Follow us on socials, on Facebook, or primarily Instagram, I suppose, is where we probably post up a bit more, and we always try and share a little bit of content from some of the people that we're working with. We've got a lot of streamers that use our stuff, and they do some cool stuff. YouTube video creators. We had our first foray into real world motorsport. A great young guy, John Madigan from Tasmania, runs an Alpha Sud, and it was just too much of a coincidence for us not to get involved with him. So he does a lot of historic stuff down in Tassie in a bright green Alpha Sud with Sudspeed on the front and the back of that car, which is pretty fun. So we share a bit of the stuff from the people that we work with on our Instagram. So follow us there and keep your eyes out for some new designs that are coming. I'm sure there'll be something that you do like. And if you want to do some racing, we're involved with some cool series. Obviously, the Majors series is a great series, and there's some pretty exciting stuff on the horizon that Majors is doing, which we can't wait to see more of in the endurance space. But also, we've got some friends who run a league here in Australia, Premier Endurance League, which is some pretty cool longer solo races, solo mini enduros, I suppose. Plus the guys who run V8 Scops, the Supercars Online Premier Series, they do some support series too if you don't like the V8, and the V8 Veteran Series too. So there's some great leagues we're involved in, and we always try to share a little bit of that on our socials and Discord and keep people up to date with what's happening in the community. Because there's some wonderful people in this hobby, game, sport, sim, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely met some motorsport tragedies like ourselves.
Yeah, it's a great community and a great hobby to be part of. So whether you want to just do it for a bit of fun or take it seriously, there's something in sim racing for everyone. And that's what we're really focusing on, is just building a bit of a community and sharing some good stuff that we see around the place. So jump on socials. That's probably what we want everyone to do. Then buy some gloves once you find something that we're selling that you like, a design that resonates with you.
And remember, just like the ancient Olympics, get some Sudspeed gloves. Other clothing is optional. Thanks, guys. It's been a really great chat. And yeah, we can't wait to see what the future for Sudspeed holds. And yeah, thanks for coming on the pod today.
Thanks, Garren.
Legend. Thanks, dude.
Thanks again to Richard and Chris for that chat. There's a lot of fun in there. It'll be a couple of weeks before the next episode comes out, but thanks for joining me on Inside the Majors. And yeah, good luck to everyone competing in the World 100 this weekend.